for being here. This is the Rexburg City Council meeting for June the 4th, 2025. We have just previously, for a couple hours, been meeting in our fiscal year 2026 budget work meeting to go through all of the city budget for next year. And we've gone through that in all of our we've met with all of our department heads and gone through all of their budgets, and this is reviewing the whole thing. And so that's in this document, and that's available for public viewing if you're so inclined to be able to get a copy of that and take a look at it. It's also will be put online as well. So we'd like to go ahead and start our meeting this evening, our official city council meeting, with a prayer, an opening prayer, and a pledge to the flag. And I've asked Councilmember Chambers to offer our opening prayer, after which Councilmember Reeser will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Heavenly Father, we give thanks this evening for the opportunity we have to meet here in the City Council meeting. We pray that Thou will bless us with Thy Spirit and help us to be wise and insightful during our deliberations. We are grateful to live in this wonderful community and for the many people that live and work here that make it great. We're also grateful for the employees that work for the city and pray that Thou will keep them safe during their performance of their duties. And we give thanks for our Savior and for all that He has done for us. And we're grateful that we can worship Him according to the dictates of our conscience. Now again, we ask that Thou will be with us this night, and we give Thee thanks. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. At this point in time, we'd like to go ahead with the roll call of our council members, please. Mariana.
Here. Here. Here.
Council President Walker.
Here.
And Council Member C. Erickson. Here.
Is he on still? Okay. Councilmember Erickson is not here in person, but he is online listening in. And so thank you for being here. All right, let's go ahead with item number 4 on the agenda is a time for public comment. This is for items that are not on the agenda. If you have something you would like to make us aware of, we ask you to come up to the podium and state your name and address, and just let us know what's on your mind. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Yes, go ahead. Come on up.
Yes, my name's Dale Wright, live at 237 Marianne Drive here in town. And I've got some concerns about the municipal golf course. It looks great. I'll start out with a positive. It looks great. Over the years, the city and county have both put in a lot of effort, and it looks really nice. However, as you can see, that's on the side of my house. That's a golf ball, and there's a number of pictures there if you want to go through those. Anyway, at approximately hole number 4, or tee number 4, and I'm not sure because I don't golf, but there are 3 places you can tee off of to the hole that's down by where the new water pumps are at on the canal. And they're the furthest one's 194 yards, the next one's 185 yards, and the closest one's 154 yards. And the longest one is only 25 yards from the canal. And if you're an inexperienced golfer or anybody really, having a bad day, you tend to slice the ball. And we've counted, went out the other day and counted, and we have 16 holes in our fence and in our house. The golf balls also go over our house and land in the street and have hit homes on the next, across the street from us on Marianne. We've had all these holes. I didn't show them all, but we have all these holes. We've had 2 windows broken out, and my wife was picking cherries and she got nailed in the leg with a direct hit, and that left her with a deep bruise for about 6 months. And I'm wondering, is there anything that can be done? And I was thinking about it, and I've got my opinion on it. And I know the city probably doesn't have that opinion. However, I would suggest that you take those 3 tees out, or not 3, but 2, and leave the 154-yard one there. So you still have the 9 holes. You just, instead of 194 yards, you got 154 yards. So that would make her a shorter one. And I'm a heavy equipment operator, so I'd even volunteer to run the equipment to take it out. I've done it for the police department using the city's equipment. Of course, I was an employee at the time, so which would, insurance-wise, would make a difference, I'm sure.
Suggestion would be to take out
Those 2. Either move them way further to the west or just have that one that's 154 yards.
Yeah, the tee boxes. Yeah.
If you put up a post alongside the canal there and use the netting that sometimes the driving courses use, that rots out in a couple of years and you have to replace it again. So,
I'm thinking one thing we could do though we'd have to get some big ones though. I'm wondering if we could plant a heavy row of trees along there that would intercept those balls before they come. And if we located them in the right spots, we might be able to.
Mayor, can I speak to that quickly? So
Yeah.
I don't have the specific language, but it is a unique situation where the FAA encumbers some of what we're able to do there.
Mhm.
And so, for instance, we've had this conversation on Main Street. And so, and again, we don't need to get into the legality or I'll save you guys the lecture on that. But just to that specific point, I think at one point I had heard that, and Matt, you've been on golf board, is it an 18, if anything is taller than projected growth over 18 feet, the FAA won't allow us.
But we'd have to cut down everything on the golf course that's there if that was the case.
Pre-existing, and so anything new planted.
Oh, I see.
And so again, it's nothing that we're putting on ourselves, Mayor. It's
Mhm.
issues that I think Keith has had more conversations with them because he does work on the board. And so again, I'd have to defer to the exact language, but I know, and again, don't quote me on the 18 feet, but there is a specific limitation on what they allow us to plant moving forward.
Okay.
Again, pre-existing, they're not going to make us rip those things out. But as they say, to new growth and new trees, we can't create the further hazard. I think, again, are you talking about hole 4?
Pardon me?
Hole 4.
I think that's what it is.
And hole 4 in the Muni, it's the par 3, correct?
I think it's hole 3, isn't it? Aren't we talking about
That'd
hole
be the
3?
one. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do. We know where Dale lives, and I think there's a few other the neighbors over there that have had
Yes.
some similar issues. So I think what we need to do is go out there and take a look at it and make a judgment on what we need to do and just actually do something. Because I know we've talked about this before, but we haven't ever done anything.
And again,
One-
this isn't deal with, you say what we need to do. From a fairness standpoint, I'll defer to you on that. Lawyers aren't always the fair. From a legal standpoint, so when we say what we need to do, legally, you don't have to do anything. As long as it is maintained in a normal golf course industry standard. A lot of these homes, again, I can't speak to this gentleman's home, but when you buy a house on a golf course, there are certain things that predated those homes. And so, again, we can do those things, Mayor. I think it's important just to note that I think those things, because again, from just an assumption of risk, if we do those things out of something that you and the council decide to do, out of fairness, out of what you believe is fair to the rights of the citizen, again, I think it's important to note that that's not from a liability standpoint, because if you take it from that direction, if the tree that you put in, isn't dense enough or whatever it is, again, what we want to avoid is creating that standard in which we're saying that we have to do these things.
Okay. Yes, go ahead,
Just
Matt.
ask a question just to clarify, and then one thing that Spencer kind of alluded to is the heights. I believe they do kind of change the farther you get away from the runway. So there's just some FAA rules that we'd have to look through. But as you go, Dale, just show us, we'll zoom in there. But I want to make sure that we're talking the same thing here. What tee box are you suggesting that they tee off of? It is 3.
Roll it up.
Go up a little, Deb. Or the other way, sorry.
Down. I always get that backwards.
Keep going a little bit, Deb.
Yeah, there you go.
And so you're saying remove the tee box in the back there, right?
It'd be the one down. It would be the one down
Yeah.
further.
And then leave the, probably where the reds are, I'm guessing, that are up on the left there, the ladies' tees.
Right here,
Yep, you're right on to where you were.
one tee right here.
I think it's actually go up just a little to the left of that tree. I think it's up a little higher.
Just need to have more golf lessons.
Yeah.
1 and 2 are right.
And you're saying remove the 1 and 2 and just have people go off the 3.
Yeah,
Okay.
they love the slots. I forgot to bring my visual display with me, but we have a bucket about that big and about that deep, and it's chock full of balls.
Okay.
And we fill it up every year and we give it to people that maybe can drive a ball the correct way.
Make them,
And
make
I
them commit
grew
not
up-
to slice if you give them a ball.
Yeah, and again, there's I do. So the front field where I grew up is next to Teton Lakes, and my dad's vinyl fence.
Beat up.
It looks like a war zone. I mean, and he's taking one to the truck while he's getting the mail. And we have a lot of golf balls that you can collect and things like that. But again, it's so I will say this, it'll alleviate, to get rid of that tee box will alleviate, but even with that shorter distance, bad golfers will find a way. It's a reality of life sometimes. But again, I do think there's merit to what you're saying.
The big thing we worry about is when we go out in the backyard, we have to see who's down there getting ready to tee off, and we have to watch them.
Sure.
And even that doesn't usually work, because I had a contractor at our house the other Friday and he about got hit.
So it's really more the danger to people than you're worried about than other things.
In the
Something.
property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Anyway, that's all I had.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
we'll take a look at it.
All right, thank you.
And Mayor, it would be the golf board. Have they heard this one specifically
I don't
before?
know. Not that
I don't know about this one specifically, but others, yeah.
The golf board would be the place.
That has been the problem on hole number 2.
Because you need to use some drivers out of them too, so. Don't go for those folks on Sunset Circle.
Okay,
Hello.
yes,
Bit taller here. I'm Greg West. I live at 505 Countryside. Want to just make you guys aware and ask you to start thinking about things that you might be able to help me with. Since March, I've been doing a fundraiser to kind of help clean up the skate park here. So for over 2 decades, we didn't have any graffiti at all, or when we did, we would clean it up. Now it is covered and looks horrible. Some of the things are not good, which kids go there, and so it's not pleasing to the parents. So I've been trying to clean it up and get rid of it. And a couple of things that I might need help with is Dr. Hepworth donated a ramp that I need to go pick up down in Ammon to kind of add on to the skate park. And so if the city might have a trailer I could use, that would help. But the main things would be more of turning on the water or a pressure washer I could borrow, or just at least water to where I could buy a pressure washer and then use it to try and clean up the cement there. And then even maybe a couple more lights, because I know we just got a new camera put in, but just a little bit more security there. So when I do clean it up, it's not for nothing. And so I just wanted to have you guys start thinking about different things that we might be able to do together to try and add it to the beautification project. So thank you.
okay. Well, thank you. We appreciate your efforts to do that.
What's
We'll
the
see what
cement-
we can do to help.
What's the cement part that's getting brought in?
Sorry, what?
He said he's bringing in a new part. Is that what he said?
Oh,
Just a ramp for part of it.
Oh,
Is it a wooden?
It's wooden, yeah. So it won't be there very long. It'd be nice to either add on to it like we were going to when we first designed it, because we didn't finish a lot of it. But it's 25 years old, so it's time for a new one, and I'll talk to you guys about that after more fundraisers.
okay,
Like, give us your contact information.
okay. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Yes, come on up.
Council, Mr. Mayor. Sure
Yes.
you remember me.
I do.
So we wanted to raise a bit of a concern. There's a number of residents on Trejo Street. That's where I live, with some of the other individuals here tonight as well. We wanted to address a concern about some heavy speeding, among other issues that are going on our street. There's a number of individuals that'll just fly down that street at all times of the day and night. My biggest concern is the pedestrians on that street. There's a lot of students and younger individuals that are walking to school. There's my children, along with other people's children. There are people that bring their pets outside, just to do their thing. There's also blind spots. If you look on the map there, you can see green marks. Green marks are every single area where vehicles pull out onto Trejo Street. And some of those, or most of those spots actually, are blind spots where it's kind of difficult to see. I'm very cautious when I pull out. I know my neighbors are as well. But the problem is when people are flying through there and not going the speed limit of 25 miles an hour, it becomes a concern. So there's an extreme risk of getting T-boned in any one of those spots right there. Another issue too is just the noise of the vehicles that are flying through there. A lot of these vehicles have modified mufflers, or their motorcycles or their diesel trucks that, because they're flying through there, it has woken us up at 1, 2, 3 in the morning at times. Right now, I want to bring this to your attention just to see if there's some considerations that could be done. We have called the police on numerous occasions, and we do very much appreciate their presence that they establish in the area. But obviously, they can only do so much. They've got a whole city to patrol. They can't always be there. I know at one point, a speed limit tracker was put up temporarily, but it was just kind of a Band-Aid on the issue. My neighbor here, Todd Beck, came from Dallas, where the city of Dallas had taken some measures that they had seen effective of helping slow down speeding in some of their streets there.
What kind of measures?
So one of the measures was, if you want to bring that up there.
I'm no traffic expert. The city actually had a ban on speed bumps, speed tables, anything like that. And they
Yeah.
would, flat out refusing them. But I've seen all kinds of YouTube videos from traffic experts, and I think Salt Lake employs a lot of these too, that they'll narrow the roads, they'll change the angle of the parking, they'll do all kinds of things to still have the traffic flow through, but people just drive slower because the road seems smaller.
And narrowing the roads does seem to have that effect, but then sometimes we get people complain about us narrowing the roads.
Well, it doesn't narrow the traffic flow. I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting that. It's
Yeah.
just narrowing the visual impact of it.
Right,
And
right, yeah.
if you've been on Trejo, it's just such, especially with the setbacks
Yeah,
and the setbacks often on the south side being up, it just looks broad and
Wide
easy
open.
to rip through.
Yeah.
I don't know that the stoplight on Yellowstone will have any impact on it. It might or might
probably
not.
not, because it's clear down at the end, yeah.
But I can tell you that at night, I don't have kids. Mine are grown up and gone now. But boy, at night, it just becomes the place to cut across from Pioneer over to Yellowstone. And if there were
Okay.
anything that just made that less attractive, that would be awesome.
Okay. Well, we'll take a look at that and see if there's something we can do.
Yeah, we appreciate it. I mean, there's other
And
streets
you're
that.
Nelson Moak, right?
I am,
And-
sir.
And
Yep.
what was your name? Sorry,
It's Todd Beck, 640
Todd Beck.
Trejo.
okay.
I was actually going to speak on something else here in a second anyway.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right.
Just two quick PSs. One is congratulations on being the safest city in Idaho again. I saw RPD put that out today. That was neat.
Thank you.
Just one of, but not the least important reason why we moved to Rexburg. And the other thing is, I know it's not on the agenda and I'm probably not a great speaker on it either, but I will put my vote in favor of lids or in support of lids. I know that's a hot topic and I know there's pros and cons, but the naysayers seem to be louder. So there's one at least in support of that for lack of any other, more broad-based long-term solution. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I do think we need to do a better job of letting people know the benefits of LIDs, because there are definitely some, and there's two sides of it, right? But thank you. We appreciate that. Okay. Anybody else? Anyone else would like to address the council at this time? Anyone online that has their hand raised? No? Yes? No? Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, we will move on then to item number 5 on our agenda, which is our staff reports. We'll start with item number 5A, which is with Mr. Matt Nielsen, our CFO. And we'll talk about the approval of the contract to purchase real property on Pioneer Road and a budget adjustment for a new police facility.
Okay, so this contract would also require a budget adjustment. And so as you are all aware, we have been saving money to purchase potential land or land for a potential police building and to help build that building. And so as we went through the last 12 months, we've contracted with a construction manager, an architect, and we're trying to figure out really what that would look like, how much it would cost, how big it would be, et cetera. And one of the things that's pretty critical to that process is identification of a site, because there are differing costs, right, based on where those sites are. And so as we've went through this process, we have narrowed down several options of where it could potentially be. We found this 4.9 acres, Deborah can highlight it there, off of Pioneer Road. We went out and we got prices on a handful of different options. And to be honest, this was price-wise the best option out there. And in addition to being the best option price-wise, we also felt like it was the best location for this potential site for a police station. And so we worked with this property owner and his attorney, and Spencer was heavily involved in this process. And we have a contract before you tonight to purchase that. I think it's roughly 4.9 acres for $1.3 million total. couple things I want to note in the contract. There are some requirements, like we would have to put a fence around it before we could construct a building. So there's some cost there. We would want that anyways. And then there's a couple of other things. There's some earnest money that would be involved in it. Let's see, I think it was 10,000 on the earnest money. And then there's some deadlines and whatnot. We do get a feasibility period of about 20 days. So once we get the contract in place, we would have 20 days before we close to do any type of feasibility we want. We don't foresee any issues with this site. We don't feel like we need any environmental studies or anything like that. And then probably the other big thing to note is that originally this seller had asked us to put a condition in the contract that all it could be used for was a law enforcement facility. We knew that we didn't want to be stuck with that if for some reason we were unable to secure funding to build that facility. And so what we negotiated in the contract is what is called a right of first offer. So essentially what would happen is we would purchase the ground, and if for some reason in the future we decided that we were no longer interested or going to build a police facility, then we would have to go back to the seller, and they would have, I believe it was 30 days, if I remember right, to essentially have the first right to purchase it back for what they sold it to us for. So for the $1.3 million. If they chose not to exercise that right, then we would be able to sell that ground to someone else. So that's a condition that I think you need to be aware of. As you look at the budget for this, we have saved up that money. It's in a fund 32. And so the budget adjustment would really just be to put it into carryover as a revenue and then expense it as a land acquisition capital cost. And so that is the request. I think it's important to note publicly as well. We've had several meetings, so hopefully the public's well aware of this, that as we go through this process, our hope is to put this on the November ballot for a general bond election to be able to build this facility. Of course, we would be paying cash for this land, and then we just went through the budget and we would have additionally close to another $1 million that we could inject into the project as well. And so those are the two things that we're looking for, is approval of the contract and the budget adjustment to purchase this ground.
All right, is there any questions or comments about this item before we move forward?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
my only concern is the fact that everything here is contingent upon the passing of a bond. And I know we could resell the property, but that particular piece of property has sat vacant for, 20 years that I know of. I don't know if it's been actively on the market, but so that's my only concern, is that we're putting an outlay of, $1.5 million with the speculation that we'll pass a bond to get the police department or the police station. So that's my only concern.
Well, that's duly noted, and that is a valid concern. And I don't know, anyone else have any thoughts or concerns on that matter that you'd like to express before we vote or before we move forward? Yes, we do have a comment from our city
Quickly,
attorney.
we discussed a number of possible options with the seller and council, and they were hesitant to essentially of having an option contract. I think it's important to note a couple things. The owner of this parcel, or this LLC, they also own the Village Apartments, and so they're very excited about the prospects of having law enforcement next door. And then I think it's important to note that I think it was last year, if I'm not mistaken, Matt. This was initially under contract. It fell apart at the end based on, I think it was funding and not. Anyway, it was under contract for more than what we are currently offering to buy it for. And so, again, I do think, given your concerns, that's important to note that, again, I think it did sit vacant for a while, but they did have it under contract and had interest last year.
So hopefully, if things fall apart on that, we would be able to resell it. I think, you know, land isn't getting any more plentiful around town, so there should be some opportunities, but like I say, it's always a risk, right?
Yeah, and I'll just note, like, as we looked at other options, you can kind of classify ground in undeveloped, developed, semi-developed, whatever you want to call it, right? I would say this is semi-developed, I would say, because your services are there. Obviously it needs some sidewalk and some other things, but as we looked at it, I mean, we were really finding in what we would say are not as good of locations, raw land, undeveloped land for substantially more per acre. And then we did go out and get a realtor's opinion on it, and what we have it under or could potentially have it under contract for, if you approve the signing of it, is substantially less than what that broker's opinion is of what the value would be currently on that property. And so we really do feel good based on those factors and the research that we've done about the 1.3 million being a very fair price.
Okay. And I guess one other point, as I mentioned to these guys kind of halfway jokingly, but not really, is that our problem with speeders on Trejo, having cops going up and down that street might help solve that problem too, as well as Pioneer Road. But so there are some advantages to that too. But all right, anyway, well, thank you for that concern. We appreciate the thoughts and all of the work that's gone into looking at all these different pieces of property and all the work that's gone into that by Matt and his staff and the committee. So if there is no other discussion, I would entertain a motion to go ahead with this this contract to purchase.
And then you need to do a budget adjustment too.
Yeah.
And maybe
Do those both at the same
separate.
time?
I'd probably do them separate.
Oh, that's all. Let's see,
Can they
you got
be
that
together?
here, but
They can be together.
yeah, and do a budget adjustment. Yeah, so go ahead.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the contract to purchase the real property on Pioneer Road and make a budget adjustment to do so for the new police facility.
All right, thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Council President Walker. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will go ahead with that purchase then. Okay, item number 2. Voted aye. Okay, thank you. All right. Item number 2 is the Research and Business Development Center lease contract renegotiations
Okay.
for next door here.
So over the last month or two, we've been talking about options for that space. Right now, they currently have a contract that goes essentially through July of 2026, expires like August 1st. And so we reached out to them because we're trying to get access, if you will, earlier to the hatchery space so that we could put a museum exhibit in there. And we were able to work through those issues, no problem. They were happy to accommodate that, and we were ready to move in that direction and get that done, and give the museum or cultural arts access to that in about April, if I remember right, or somewhere in that time frame. But since that time, in the last few weeks, RBDC has actually came back to me, and they are actually asking if we could, or if they could get out of that contract sooner. And so as we looked at those options, there are a couple things to consider. I mean, we would lose a little bit of revenue this fiscal year and a little bit next year. But what we have done, I went over there. I talked briefly with Jed Platt about it on the phone. I went over there with the economic development. And what our thought is And before I actually go into that, let me just also add, they are subleasing about 4 of the offices. And some of those have contracts. The longest contract, I haven't seen the contracts yet, but he said when they sign those contracts, the longest they do is 6 months. And then they go to a month to month. And so I would imagine the longest one's probably somewhere around 2 to 4 months, I would guess at this point. But anyways, as we went over there and looked at that space, I worked with economic development, and we looked at the very back room. I wish you could see it, but there's a back room that they do like a social media lab. And then they have a second larger conference gathering room. And our thought was to continue to keep that social media lab and then give that first conference room what they're doing now in the hatchery. We could move that into that conference room. And then maintain 2 of the offices going forward for the subletting purpose. And then if we did that, we felt like we could move cultural arts from the upstairs down into the front of the space. They would get offices, that front space, some storage, and then they would also get access to the hatchery area that also has kind of a office or boardroom next to it as well. With the thought that then we could turn around and try to lease out the upstairs space to someone else and generate some revenue back. And we've been able to actually rent that space before. We had a company in there for a couple of years. It's been probably 8-10 years ago, maybe, but there was a time that we actually rented that upstairs, and it's actually probably more rentable now because we built out offices since then up there. And so I guess the ask is, what we're suggesting to the city council is that we let them out of the lease contract. My thought would be that we ask them to pay their lease through July. That would give them, the rest of this month and next month to kind of move things out of there. And then we could work with the cultural arts to get them in there just after that, right? They could work through the rest of the summer. It would allow them to get an exhibit going there. They could continue to work on the flood museum exhibit, utilizing this hallway space and some of the other space in this building as well. And so I don't think I missed anything, but the one thing that we would continue to do with RBDC is we would still collaborate with them on what they call networking nights. So they do that once a month. We felt like that was a great way to have economic development continue to work with them and local people. They actually try to do those in businesses, but a lot of times they end up doing it here as well. And then the other thing that they do is they do what's called a boot camp. And that boot camp they do it twice per year, and they do it 2 times per week for a total of 6 weeks. And it takes about 2 hours each time they meet. And the thought was that we would continue to allow them either in that back room that we would dedicate for economic development purposes, or the city council chambers as scheduled to continue to run those boot camps in conjunction with our staff in economic developments. And so that would be the request. I felt like I wanted to get your input to see if you were comfortable with that direction. And if so, then we could write up a addendum, I guess, to the contract and move in that direction.
The upstairs.
Yeah, well, typically we would, and it doesn't have to be a year, but usually they're going to want to know, especially if they're putting in any type of tenant improvement, right? But yeah, I think generally we can do a month, we can do a yearly one. A lot of times we usually do multi-year. But if you guys have concerns about going out too far, we can look at limiting that.
What are your thoughts on that?
I just think, we've talked before about needing more space at times. So if you make it too long, then I feel like it closes our options.
Yeah.
So like a year sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah.
So keep it kind of a
year
shorter
with
term.
the renewal options if we don't need it. And, yeah.
Okay.
Any other
And
thoughts?
I think on that one, depending on what it is, if they request longer, we can always come back to you guys and see if that you feel comfortable with it. Before they had I think it was a Vigila. No, oh, I can't remember their names now. It was like a monitoring company
Oh, yeah.
that utilized that space. So,
Any other thoughts from anyone about that?
How does the finance or the fine arts department feel about moving spaces?
oh, when I talked to Jed about that idea, he felt like that was wonderful. But you know, they have the problem upstairs, right? Is it's not really accessible for one thing. So when they do classes and things like that, it can be challenging. And so being on a ground level creates some benefits in that regard. I mean, I think and this is my financial opinion. I think from a financial standpoint, I mean, you guys saw the budget numbers for the general fund. I think taking on another building is not something that I would be recommending at this point based on kind of our financial outlook in the general fund. And so utilizing the space that we already own makes the most sense financially. And I think there's a lot of positives. I think the other thing that I see as a positive is, as Alicia runs the museum exhibits and those kind of things, to have the cultural arts staff right there creates some cost efficiencies that can be created, staffing. You know, you think about a museum and having multiple people there, and if nobody's there, you're still paying those people to be there. But if you have multiple people that are already working during the day, then there can be some overlap and some savings.
Well,
on
and I think
labor.
it's kind of nice too to have the cultural arts offices and things right there where the museum is. And I mean, it's kind of the same thing you just said, but just kind of having everything there together, I think is kind of a nice thing.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, I think if you take out the 4 rooms essentially that we want to keep for economic development purposes, I guess 5 if you consider the makerspace here. You know, you go into that space, there's a front area, reception area, you could have a person there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 offices, if I remember right. And then there's still another big conference room with windows that we added a few years ago that could be used for classes or other things. And then there's still, of course, the big hatchery space, which is very large, that you could use for exhibits. And then the additional boardroom as well, or the meeting room or whatever you want to call it. So it really is a pretty big space.
Do you know the square footage amount upstairs?
Oh, I believe this is very rough, but I think it's between 2,000 and 2,500, somewhere in that ballpark.
I mean, I like the idea, cultural arts museum, but we still haven't solved the storage problem of all the exhibit.
No,
If you, I mean, it's temporary and it's not probably enough, but if you put the storage up there, you could rotate exhibits
you could do that.
quite easily.
We have just bought, I mean, I don't know if you know this, we just bought a 40-foot Connex box, and Sewer is going to store some things in there that were in their affluent building. And so we are asking Alicia and Jed to work on moving the things that need to be in a controlled climate space into that building. And so we're asking them to do that first. And then the other thing to consider is you have to, I mean, yes, we might have to move it out potentially during construction, but the reality is we don't have funding in place to finish that basement. And so you may be able to just put it right back there until you get that funding.
Yeah.
Which basement?
The tabernacle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that sounds like, can I ask one more question? I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So we've talked about putting the flood exhibit there, and then you'd be able to keep like another exhibit there regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the talk that we've had is trying to do a flood exhibit in this open space area so that it's just accessible, just something that somebody could come to City Hall and see the history of that flood, and then have the exhibit in that more controlled area of the hatchery.
And then we'd show the video here.
You could show the video here. They could do it here. I mean, they could even do it in one of those other rooms if they chose to.
Sounds good.
Just some options. Yeah. Okay, any further discussion on that? Well, anyway, the item that we have is the RBDC lease contract renegotiations, the option to end that lease, as Matt said, at the end of July. So is there, if there's no other discussion about that, I would entertain a motion to go ahead and move forward with that item.
So, Mr. Mayor, is the motion to authorize Matt to do the renegotiation of the contract?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I would make that motion then to authorize Matt to go ahead with the renegotiation of the lease contract with RBDC.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Chambers. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. We will go ahead with that negotiation and move forward with that. Sorry, what? Okay, thank you. All right, item number 5B is our Public Works report. Keith Davidson is on vacation this week, so we'll get Mr. Justin Beard filling in for him, and he's gonna go over these items.
Okay, thanks. So we've been working on, in addition to the park shop's on Second North, over by Rexburg Rapids. And we bid this out originally a couple months ago as a still framed building, addition to that building. The bids came back too high, so we went back and we got bids for a wood framed building. It's still a metal sided building, metal roof. It just has a wood frame on the inside. And we received these two bids. And so we're proposing that we award the contract to Clary Building Corporation to do that project and build that addition to the park shop.
All right, is there any questions about this building from anyone? We have been working through this for actually several years, trying to get an additional shop building over there at the Parks Department so they can get a lot of their equipment inside and under cover for the winter time. This is a result of a lot of different thoughts and ideas and rebidding and different things like that. So if there are no questions, I would entertain a motion to approve or to award this contract.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I make the motion that we approve the Park Storage Shop Edition bid to Cleary Building Corporation in the amount of $135,906.
All right, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilmember, who said that? Eric Erickson, thank you. All right, any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is Colin still voting?
Aye.
Okay, good deal. All right, thank you. That motion passes. And we will go ahead and award that and see if we can get that built finally. Just so that you know, our own crews have been over there with the big excavators tearing out some of the old concrete walls and things that were there, and some of the concrete on the ground that has to be taken out so that we can reshape the ground so the drainage goes the right direction and all that kind of stuff. So we've had our crews. That was part of what we decided to do originally. We were going to just let it all out in the in the bid for the construction, but it was a lot of money to do some of that stuff. So we decided to have our own crews do that, and I think they've got that done over there now, don't they, Justin? Or do you know?
I think so. I haven't been over there.
I haven't been over there to look at it yet either. So, but anyway, all right. Item number 2 is the chip seal project.
So we received bids for chip sealing. This is for chip sealing, basically the major streets that were reconstructed last year. University, South Yellowstone, Pioneer, North Hill Road, and Barney Dairy Road. So we received these two bids, and most of the funding for this actually comes from that $2 million grant we received from ITD last year. We didn't use it all on the Crabs project to reconstruct those streets, and so what's left we're using to do the chip seal on those streets, plus some addition on North Hill Road and Barney Dairy Road were part of the LID last year.
Okay.
So we are proposing that we award this contract to HK Contract.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions about that? If none, I would entertain a motion to award this bid.
Mr. Mayor, I shall move that we award the bid for the chip seal project to H&K Contractors for $221,760.
All right, thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Councilmember Reeser. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. And item number 3 is, okay, thank you. Is a resolution for the approval of the Idaho Transportation Department, Division of Aeronautics for the grant agreement for the sage grouse mitigation site for the new airport.
Yeah, so this is a grant that's been offered to us from the state of Idaho for the environmental study to identify sage grouse mitigation site to offset sage grouse habitat taken with new replacement airport. So this is $11,453.47 that would go towards that environmental study for the new airport. So we just need an approval to accept that grant and sign the agreement. And there's
Okay.
a resolution, right?
Questions? Any questions about this? So to be clear, this grant is just to help pay for the study to find that sage grouse mitigation site, right?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? One of those things that we got to do to move forward. So anyway, if there are no questions or discussion on it, I would entertain a motion to move forward with this resolution. Excuse me.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move approval of resolution number 2025-05.
All right. Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Anyone? Council President Walker, seconded. Any further discussion or questions about this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. And we will take a look at item number 4, which is the approval of Mill Hollow Road sidewalk bid awards.
So we received a grant through LTAC through the Child Pedestrian Program to build a sidewalk on Mill Hollow Road. This is between the hospital where the sidewalk ends now, south to Second South. The sidewalk will go on the west side. Basically, right now there's a white stripe. Instead of just being a striped asphalt pathway, we'll move the curb over and put a concrete sidewalk there. So we received a $250,000 grant. We received these bids yesterday. And so they're quite a bit lower than the grant amount. So there is potential that we can talk to LTAC and maybe expand the project some and use the full funding. But for now, we just need we have a recommendation to award to Galicia's Concrete for the $140,651.50.
You know, Justin, I know it's up there on the hill, but one thing I was wondering, I was at the water users conference over in Sun Valley Monday and Tuesday, and I was noticing as I drove around over there where their pathways are, some of them, you know, are separated, which is nice, but some of them are right next to the street. And they don't have a full stand-up curb. They've got kind of it's not a flat curb, but it's kind of a rolled up curb. It still is, it's maybe almost as high as a stand-up curb, but it's more of a rolled curb. And it just kind of looks like it doesn't get beat up as much because it still, I don't know, it looks like it's been there for quite a while, but so I don't know if there's something like that we ought to look at. just to see if something like that would be maybe a better solution than the stand-up curbs, because it just seems like they get beat up with the snowplows and stuff quite a bit.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, this does have the full high back curb, but we definitely can look at other options
I think
for
we ought to
curbs
take a
there.
look, and I took a picture of it. I can show you. I don't know how good you can tell from it, but anyway, you know what I'm talking about anyway, right?
yep.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, anyway, the item at hand is the bid award. So, I would entertain a motion to move forward with this bid award.
Mr. Mayor, I move to accept Galicia's concrete bid for $140,000, $651.50.
All right. Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Okay, so second by Councilmember Johnson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you. Okay, thank you, Justin.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there maybe before we let Justin sit down, we should subject him to the same thing we subject Keith to? And does anyone have any
I do.
Public Works items?
My light is not fixed.
Your life or
Mine's
your
got a light
light?
question.
McDonald, they're on University.
Uh-huh.
McDonald's is 3.5 years we've been trying to work on this light and it's not fixed yet. I think we need
So
to
the
get
part
that
that's not fixed, is there a certain movement that
It
doesn't
doesn't
work?
rotate.
It doesn't
I mean,
work.
it rotates. It does, the sensor does not work.
So the cameras have issues?
Have issues.
Okay, I will take that back to Keith and to Joel and
Perfect.
remind them about
Because they
that.
keep telling it's fixed and I go out there and it is not fixed.
I
But
keep
that Colin, he's online, he'll vouch it's not fixed.
I keep arguing with you because I drove through that today and it was fine. And I'm like, what is Mike always
It's okay
complaining
if there's
about?
traffic coming, but if there's no traffic. if there's
Oh,
no
okay,
traffic,
that's what you're saying.
I think it's just rotating during the day.
So as long as there's traffic, you think it's fine, but if there's nobody there and you're just sitting
It's
there
not
waiting, you have to wait like 30 seconds or something for
Yeah.
it to turn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Joel today said he just adjusted it within the last couple of days.
Okay, so maybe
I'll
he,
visit with you about it.
So try it again tonight.
I'll try it again tonight.
Again, see if it works this time.
Maybe you need to turn your lights on.
That'd work. That'd work.
Okay.
Is there anything else you'd like me to take to Keith?
Anything else? Yeah.
I just have a question. Do you know when they're gonna repaint the crosswalks in the city? I saw them out painting the.
Yeah, they did the stripes this week. I haven't heard a schedule on.
Okay.
They usually get right on it and get it done pretty early.
I would guess it.
It's all contracted out, but I haven't heard a schedule yet.
Yeah, I noticed today too, some of the new striping had been done, which is nice, especially on those ones where you go around the curve. Yeah, so. Okay, anything else? All right, thank you, Justin.
Okay,
Appreciate it. All right. Item number 6 is mayor's business, and I will mention to you, just so that you're aware, Matt mentioned that we got the $245,000 grant to help with the HVAC system at the Tabernacle. An unfortunate item is they added a new requirement to the grant requirements, and that is that we had to do a radon test in the building. And of course, the radon test came back too high. There's radon in the building, so we're going to have to do some radon mitigation, which we don't know how much it'll cost, but hopefully it won't be gazillion dollars. From people I've talked to, they've said it's usually a fairly simple. You just have to put in some kind of a venting place for and a fan for it to be able to push the radon out into the atmosphere so it gets everybody sick instead of just the people in the Tabernacle. I guess I don't know how that works, but anyway, so that's one of the things that we're working on that we'll have to take care of, and we'll let you know how that comes out. As I did mention, the Water Users Conference was good. There were a lot of good information there. As you know, there's a lot of discussion about water these days, and we feel like it's important to be involved in those discussions so that we know where we're at with our water rights and having enough water for our citizens for the future. I was able to have a good conversation with the Idaho Department of Water Resources Director, Matt Weaver, as well as the Bureau of Reclamation Area Director was there, and talked with both of them about the possibility of of rebuilding the Teton Dam in the future. And there seems to be gaining more momentum from legislators and a lot of people. In fact, I will forward you there's a kind of a letter, kind of a thing that is being sent around for people to sign on to show support for that. One of the things that we want to emphasize is the need for the dam. Of course, there was a need for the dam, or they wouldn't have been looking at building it there, and that need has not gone away. It's just gotten bigger over time. As the area has grown, we have more needs for water storage, flood control, power generation, recreation areas, and a lot of those types of things. And so, if you feel so inclined, I would ask you to sign on to that letter. If you've got questions about it, then we definitely want to talk about questions and concerns and so that you're very well informed about it. So anyway, just wanted to make you aware of that. Other items that we're working on is, our downtown development. We've been, of course, working on it for a couple of years. There's been some issues with just development costs, building costs, of course, that have escalated rapidly, and the developers have had some concerns there. So we've actually are looking at kind of scaling that back a little bit and maybe not doing as much, but just focusing on one area of the downtown instead of 3 different areas for now. And so that's one of the things that we're working on. Of course, the major benefit to the city of that would be if we can develop a larger building downtown that is more valuable, then that's something that we can help to bring in more revenue to the city at a lower cost, because we've got all of the utilities and all of everything we need to service that building is already there. So it wouldn't cost us any more to put that in. And that's always helpful when you can develop areas that are already, or when you can upscale, I guess you'd say, areas that are already developed with the infrastructure. And one of the other things we're working on too is just more tourism development, because that's kind of the same thing. If you can bring in tourists, they come, they spend their money, they go home, and you don't have to spend a lot of money in infrastructure costs to house them, because the hotels and everything are already here. So those are some of the things we're working on, just to kind of keep you updated a little bit on some of those things. Is there any questions about any of those things, or anything else that I could address for you? Yeah.
What goes into the tourism development?
Tourism development are things like, we're looking at, is there a way to, the school district would be interested in having not only the school district, but a lot of people have expressed the idea of trying to have an indoor water facility, swimming facility. And the schools would love to have a place for the swim team to practice and to be able to bring in meets, bring people in for regional swimming meets or even state meets. And so we're looking at that kind of a thing. And then maybe also there might be an opportunity to be able to host different kinds of tournaments, soccer tournaments, lacrosse, things like that. If we had we're kind of looking at the possibilities of doing some kind of indoor facilities that could host those kind of things and bring in more tourists and things like that. So kind of a sports tourism, I guess you'd say. I've studied a lot of other cities that are kind of not big cities, but they're more mid-sized or smaller cities that are in the Midwest and places like that. And a lot of them are doing those kind of things and doing it very successfully. So we try to use that model and try to go, that kind of same direction. So just some of the things that and it's all very preliminary. but you know, things that we'd like to take a look at and see if there's things that we can develop. All right, we have item number 7 on the agenda, which is the approval of for Altura CDBG administration grant. That's the one that I talked about earlier with where it had the new radon requirement. Altura has been helping us to get that grant, and we need to approve their administration contract for that grant. Let's see, I don't think there's anyone from Altura here, but I think it's
I can give you the details. Rick actually texted me and asked if I'd just give you the
okay.
details.
Yeah, go ahead with that then.
So basically Altura would administer, and this grant would be a not to exceed $24,500 on that grant.
Okay.
So if you think about it, that's about 10% of that grant amount. And then I think I kind of already talked to you guys earlier about the budget. The budget's $875. The carryover, which is a mix of contributions from the public and what we've been saving, is about $360,000 that would fund that, plus the grant of $245. And then the remaining amount would be the transfers from, there's a little bit in arts promulgation and also some in the general fund. So that's what this grant contract would be, though. It's the 24/5.
Is there questions about that? Anyone? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve this administrative contract.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the administrative contract with Altura for the CDBG grant.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Johnson seconded. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. All right, motion passes. We will go ahead and turn that contract over to them for administration and get moving on that. All right, item B is a planning and zoning recommendation to approve the Squires subdivision number 3 plat at approximately 350 East Moody Road. This application is to subdivide the parcel into 4 additional lots. Mr. Parkinson, Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Mayor, council members, thank you. The property is located just south of the Walmart that exists out there right now. Can we rotate one? Anyways, yeah, I can go. No, I was going to click them too. Okay, that was close. Property is located right there. Which one was the plot? That one. Okay, now I wanted to point out one thing before you get too far into it. If you look at the parcel viewer, it does not match the plat. They had to make an adjustment to the deed. They had recorded it wrong, but they have sent us the correct ones, and they have the correct deed that does match this. They just haven't had time for GIS to update this to match what the plat is. Because if you look at the plat, there's that little jog out on the east side. And so it has been corrected. It is done and meets that. Staff has looked at this, put out the requirements that they needed to follow. They've met it. They can service it both with sewer, water. They've approved the roads that would be going into this. The infrastructure has all been designed, and it is prepared and ready to move forward at this point. Planning and Zoning has recommended it to you for approval. And I would answer any questions if you have any.
All right, any questions?
Yeah, you know, that entrance onto Second East, I know it's gotta have, but that's gonna be a.
Right in, right out
Yes.
only.
What's that?
It's a right in, right out only.
In other words, they can't turn
Oh, okay.
left.
So there'll be no
That-
left turns. Yeah.
That's what ours is.
Yeah, that was the only reason they would allow. Plus, there will be a connection coming down and connecting to stationary right along that property that we just sold, right on the corner. So there will be a connection there, bringing them to stationary. There's 2 or 3 that bring them back onto Moody Road. So that's probably going to be their main interest, and the store will sit close to the back of this property. So that's where they're going to be. They did create 3 other lots in there. Those are lots that are probably going to be for sale for others to develop on. So.
Okay, any other questions? All right.
Addition to the community.
Yeah, if no other questions, I would entertain a motion to approve this, this plat.
I will make that motion, Mr. Mayor, that we approve the plat for the Squire subdivision number 3 for the Winco Foods project.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Chambers. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, item number 8, 8A is the tabled item. Unless there's a motion to remove that item from the table, we will move on to item B. Is there such a motion before we move ahead? All right, then we will go ahead with item number B, which is a second reading of ordinance number 1331, which is a cost of living salary increase for mayor and city council. We discussed this last meeting and approved that with the first reading. Just so that folks who are here in the audience know, every item that we approve, or if they're ordinances, they have to be approved. They have to go through a reading process of 3 times, the first, second, and third reading, and this is the second reading. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to consider ordinance 1331 second read. Is there such a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion.
All right, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, second by Council President Walker. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? All right, we will that. All right, thank you. That we will consider ordinance 1331 second read. We have no third readings tonight, so that gets us to item number 9 is the consent calendar, which is to approve the minutes from our May 21st, 2025 meeting and to approve the City of Rexburg bills. And item number C is the approval of the 2025 fireworks stands. Anybody have any questions about that? Where you're going to buy your fireworks this year?
Mayor, I did have a clarification on those fireworks stands. We have an application that came in today that stated one of the locations as City Hall.
Oh.
And that was an accident on our applicant's part. It is actually where they were, our prior lot that's out there by Arco, the 1256 North
So
Second.
Your
That's
customer
where,
service is not selling fireworks at the front door. or the
that
back
is
door.
correct. So we are not selling fireworks at City Hall.
Mariana was all excited there for a minute.
I know, but it is, it is at that 1256 North Second
North,
East
Second East.
location.
Okay, all right, thank you. So pretty much the same locations as there.
That
Oh.
they had, yeah, that was the confusion. We owned it last year, so they put our names on it.
Oh, that's right.
So-
Yeah, we let them go on that lot that we owned. Okay. All right. Well, at this time then, unless there's any questions or comments about the items on the consent calendar, I would entertain a motion to move forward with to approve the consent calendar.
I will make a motion that we approve the consent calendar. Things as stated.
All right, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I can second it.
Seconded by Council Member Erickson. Oh, I could actually hear you. That's awesome.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, Council Member Erickson. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Councilmember Erickson, have you been able to hear us okay tonight, or has it been a little sketchy?
No, it's been pretty good.
Okay, well, that's good. Okay.
Better than last time by far.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, unless there are any other items to come before you, yes.
I got a couple just things. The bridge over in the nature park
Mhm.
on the west side, they're just
Yeah.
north of the shelter,
Okay,
of the playground there, is broke. Somebody's kicked it in. I know it's been reported. I don't know if anybody knew what the timetable was. The one whole section's gone, and then on one of the top rails.
you say you have reported it already?
Yeah, I called
Oh.
them. I just want to know.
I didn't know, I actually didn't know anything about that, so I'll check on it.
I haven't heard, but we'll make a note and we'll talk with Parks.
Okay, perfect. And then also, I was wondering at the pickleball courts, I was over there yesterday playing a little pickleball, and the nets are getting really bad. They've been duct taped with them, the pickleball players. So maybe when we get that, when they do that work on the resurfacing, fixing the cracks over there, if maybe we could put some new nets up.
Okay, I'll make a note of
They
that.
kind of
You don't like the
beat
duct,
up and.
you don't like the duct tape look?
No, it doesn't make us look too good.
Okay. Makes your ball bounce off funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
All
all
right,
I have.
we'll take a look at that. All right, is there anything else from anyone that we need to be aware of or look at? Okay, if not, then we will stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We appreciate your attendance.